a historian, a media commentator and community activist, because it is the birthday of one of my favorite human beings on the planet, Daniel Kahn, live from Berlin, Germany. And I could not be more excited about our next concert. About the Chorny Gergus duo. They are one of the most renowned groups performing Yiddish music in Europe, and they're coming to us live from Moldova. And through the letters, you will see the development of this relationship and how two people who love each other like brothers can become mortal enemies. And that's what extremism can do. And as we all know, if we don't learn from history, we are destined to repeat it. And so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, my friend Ken Clement, who's in Los Angeles right now. Joshua's so-called Dolgin, this guy is unbelievable, is a pianist, an accordionist, a producer, a journalist, a photographer, filmmaker, magician, cartoonist, and puppet maker, who is based in Montreal, Quebec. He has lectured, has led masterclasses in music festivals around the world, from Moscow to Paris, from London to LA, and from Krakow to San Francisco. He has performed on every continent. Really? On Antarctica?
4 times.
4 times on Antarctica? Really? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joshua, so-called Dolgin! Yay! Bravo! Bravissimo! Woohoo! They are in Brighton in the United Kingdom. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Merlin and Paulina Shepard. I am so excited that I'm sitting here live in the lobby of the Betsy Hotel, and we have with us a very special guest who wrote the biographical and contextual information for Chaim Plutzik's Letter from a Young Poet. Welcome, Edward Moran.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
You have published over 40 books and approximately 200 scholarly articles, essays, and chapters on topics in history and politics. Your recent books, America's First Choice, The Nazi Titanic, which you will be presenting to us, The Ghost Ship of Brooklyn, and George Washington's Final Battle, have received critical acclaim. You are a frequent media commentator. I could not be more honored to be sitting in this Zoom right now with the two incredible composers and musicians of the film The City Without Jews. So first of all, welcome, 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 Alicia Svigals and Donald Sussin. Thank you. The creator, the director, the videographer, the editor of this amazing project, and someone I can call a personal friend. And I love him much. Dave Corley. You are a frequent media commentator. You have been interviewed by local, national, international television, radio, print, and online outlets, including CNN, MSNBC, Time, USA Today, the New York Times, BBC, and more. You served for many years as the political analyst for WPTV Channel 5 NBC, a Sunday columnist for the Sun Sentinel newspaper, and a regular guest on television shows To The Point and Issues, as well as radio programs on RTE1 Ireland. Dean Gold contacted me out of the blue one day and said, I heard that you could act in Yiddish. And so he invited me to participate in this movie. I'm very honored that you're with us. Michael Vinograd. Michael, thank you, thank you, thank you. Brilliant. What a brilliant, brilliant concert, man. This is a very important film for several different reasons. Of course, we know who Benjamin Ferencz is, we know who Yaakov Heller is, but the idea that both of these forces have now come together to create this piece of art is the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, WIOD, and WFTL. I hope I've embarrassed you enough, Robert. We could not be more honored to have you here telling us about your book, The Nazi Titanic. I just want to say how honored I am to be your friend, to have met you, to be an associate and a colleague. Hey, boys! Shalom Aleichem, Antayre Chaverim, meine Boychiks. It's my Boychiks. First of all, before I even say anything, I thank you. I am so honored to have you guys be a part of this festival. And when we spoke and you agreed, I could not have been happier. And now, having actually watched the documentary, I am flying. I am so excited, so happy. and so glad that we could share.
No, the honor.
No COVID. Get rid of the COVID.
Okay, sorry.
Ellie, we don't. That's the one Yiddish word that we are banning for the rest of the
Canceled. Canceled word.
Hang on. I'm going to just thank you back because, first of all, that good thing we said yes, because once we saw the lineup of Yiddishist luminaries and just visionaries that you put together, it's a good thing we made the cut. So anyways, we thank you for having us. We thank you for screening our film. And we also thank you for being instrumental in bringing us to Miami Beach to perform our live show last year and to speak at the Betsy, where you are right now, where we want to go back. We will do anything to go back to the Betsy, okay? We love that place.
All right, you hear that, Betsy? And I love your T-shirt, gefilte, baby.
It's like gefilte fish, but if we're keeping it real here, it's also, as some viewers might spot, the Jesus fish. You know, it's a symbol of Jesus. And this is important because, you know, there are some places that won't show our film, Jewish organizations, even though we think this is a very Jewy film, because of a bunch of the places that we show in the movie are not kosher. So I thought that this was a good symbol for it. Yeah.
Leave it to Jews to be the only ones to ban this film.
Wer kann verstehen solche Sachen? Nobody Eden.
I once put gefilte fish in an aquarium. That didn't work out well.
Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Kahn and friends with a special concert just for us, Yiddish Song Smuggler.
Chevre, ob Gott wird uns nicht helfen, lo mir sich befreien allein, ui lo mir sich zerreißen von die Ketten, und lo mir allein zusammengehen. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, join the marching jobless corps. Worked and paid our union dues. What did years of that produce? Houses, cars, and other shit for the rich's benefit. What do workers get for pay? Hungry, broke, and thrown away. Hungry, broke, and thrown away. Hard-working women, powerful women, women who labor in factories and homes. Let's join in their fight, for it's only beginning, and no one should stand in the struggle alone. Let us all carry the red flag together, weathering storms in the dark of the night, building a temple of freedom forever, helping each other to carry the light.
Was wilt ihr? Sagt wem es schlich es der fehlt ihr? Ihr fresst die Korbones, Gorona Rachmones, ihr blühende Leben nur zielt ihr. Ihr bat sich in Tränen von Weinen, ihr zieht aus dem Mark von die Beine. Ihr samt die Gedeirim, ihr kriechende Weirim, Mikroben, Bazillen, was wilt her?
You know, Theo Bickel used to say that, you know, we are not a people of nostalgia, we are a people of memory. I don't know, maybe there is something about this strange time of so much deep adversity and suffering and injustice, where our sense of memory, cultural memory and historical memory, really is a tool that arms us to deal with the world. And you know, I'm so inspired by seeing, you know, all of these events that have been happening online in our virtual shtetl.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joshua, so-called Dolgin. Yay!
Yeah, all right. Come on. Come on, put your hands together, everybody. It's Wednesday afternoon. Okay, break it down. Here we go. See. This song comes from the repertoire of Five-ish Finkel. It's written by Ruben. Ik bin schon wieder Single, und da soll wie Jingle. Mit mein Weiber hab ich sich gegeben. Gedenkt hab ich zu muffen, herumgesucht zu schluppen, hab mein Weiber mehrere Berge reibt. Jo, was darfst du so klicken? In Fremde rum sich stecken und sei alleine treten zu die Welt. Wo zeigt die Blicken, wo bei ihr ist mir Corona, Schere, Rest und trinkt noch Rüllig, Brenner, Welt, Brenner, Welt, Brenner, Welt. Yeah! Dam se ziemi di do di Ciccia oczy slina necze di do di Uczy funno kolo igra di do di Namakazu Oi, I like she Oi, 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 I like she Shem sagt nicht, den sag ich offen, ich kenn nicht essen, ich kenn nicht schlafen. Im Herzen burschet allemal. Du benimmst, süßer Geschmack wie ein Meerenzimmes. I like she, oi, I like she, and that's all. That's all.
Where is your Yiddish from? Your Yiddish is so beautiful.
I grew up here, which is Chelsea, Quebec, which is just north of Ottawa. It's in the Gatineau Hills, and it's really the country. It's about 20 minutes from Ottawa, but not a word of Yiddish was spoken by my parents, who are from Winnipeg, where also Yiddish would have been spoken, of course. Yes. And their parents spoke a little Yiddish. Well, some of them did, and some of them didn't. But really, my parents were, you know, part of the generation that was assimilating and not dealing with that part of their cultural history. And we went to synagogue in Ottawa. It was a 40-minute drive or whatever, and I had my bar mitzvah and did all that. And we had a Jewish home, and the cooking and the celebrations and synagogue and all that. I collected Yiddish records. I was collecting records. I was looking for samples. Traditionally, in hip-hop, they come from vinyl, mostly soul, R&B, disco. So I sort of was part of the early 90s, like, golden age of hip-hop, and I started to collect old records to try to make my own beats. I wanted to bring myself to the story, and I happened upon Moshe Oisher and Aaron Lebedev and Sidor Bolarski and cantors and Hasidic nigunim and klezmer, and then weird like fusion records like Bagels and Bongos by Irving Fields, trying to make Jewish music hip.
February 12th, 1934. Max, my old friend. My God, Max, do you know what you do? I shall have to try to smuggle this letter out with an American I have met here. I write an appeal from a despair you cannot imagine. This crazy cable, these letters you have sent, I am called into account for them. The letters are not delivered, but they bring me in and show me letters from you and demand I give them the code? A code? And how can you, a friend of long years, do this to me? Do you realize, have you any idea that you destroy me? Yes, I know why you do it. But do you not understand? I could do nothing. What could I have done? I did not dare to try. Would you stand me against the wall and level a gun? I beg of you, stop. Stop now while everything is not yet destroyed. I am in fear of my life, for my life. Is it you who does this? It cannot be you. I have loved you like a brother, my own Max. My God. Have you no mercy? I beg you, Max, no more. No more. Stop while I can be saved. From a heart filled with old affection, I ask it. Martin.
That is Catherine Cressman Taylor's address unknown. This is perhaps as relevant today as it was when she wrote it in 1938. There are Nazis marching in the United States of America today. And there are leaders who are not afraid to pursue division among people.
It would always shatter me when the lights would come up at the end and we'd come down for a Q&A, and there would be high school kids that would be crying.
Right.
And I remember specifically one girl in the front row, one performance, saying, how can people do this to each other? And it just is always stuck with me about what this play means a lot to me because of what it meant to a lot of people. Right. And what I learned doing this show, because I have a lot of white ignorance, and but I have, thankfully, from my upbringing, I have a very open mind, and I'm willing to learn. And this was one of the biggest learning experiences of my life in this show, learning, just how horrible people can be to each other, and the history of how it repeats itself, and intolerance.
Steven Spielberg,
Nora Ephron,
Kenneth Cole,
Gwyneth Paltrow,
Dustin Hoffman,
Al
Franken,
Betty Wasserstein,
Aaron Sorkin. One Jewish journalist, curious and confused, asked some very nosy questions of some very famous Jews.
She knocked on a lot of doors, and she got a lot of them to talk. Many of them dug deep, some of them balked.
I am not a hardcore Jew, I'm more like what you'd call Jewish.
I would never move to Boca.
And what the hell is in gefilte fish?
So how did you, number one, how did you decide who you wanted to interview? And then how did you get to them?
Even when many of these celebrities were not living an overtly Jewish life, meaning they weren't observant, they weren't necessarily going to synagogue, and they weren't necessarily even choosing to give their children a bar or bat mitzvah, as soon as you asked them about their Jewish identity, their Jewish core, it was unshakable and powerful and operating for them. And so I realized that some of our definitions of what does it mean to be a connected Jew, it has to be a little more malleable in a way for this modern moment. It's not always a question of whether someone davens 3 times a day. It's whether they feel connected to, and not just knishes and gefilte fish, but some kind of ancestral tether that they won't let, that is unbreakable. And I found that as a surprise, that no matter, even if someone had walked away from ritual, and many of them had been raised with it and let it go, that they still were kind of unapologetically Jewish, proud of it, connected, very angry about anti-Semitism, and particularly when it's directed at Israel. So they were kind of unshakable Jews, despite the fact that I think many observant Jews might have some judgment about what is the substance of their Judaism. I will say one of the surprises is just how many of them had decided that kind of synagogue didn't speak to them. Prayer was alienating. And I sometimes feel, I guess because I came to it late and find it so powerful, I'm not an Orthodox Jew, but I would say I am very deeply involved and connected to my synagogue and do have a sense of being moved by prayer and liturgy, that sometimes I feel like it takes a little more elbow grease before you give up on it. And I wish that some of them had returned after what many called traumatic Hebrew school to give it another try.
Well, do you remember the first time you were approached about the concept of turning your great book into a musical? Tell me about opening night.
Opening night, I think I threw up. It was both so powerful to know that this book had become a show. And it was also, humbling and scary to think that suddenly an audience was going to see something that had come from nothing, in a sense.
If you look at the statistics, 85% of the Jewish population does not consider itself affiliated in any way. They consider themselves Jews. What would you tell them?
In this day and age, young people basically spend time on what they want to spend time on. You can't convince them of something if it doesn't actually have value that they feel. And what I would argue is, if you haven't dipped a toe into this tradition, into this culture, into these stories, just take another look. I think I wanted to write a book about famous Jews and whether their Jewishness mattered, whether they carried it with them. If you're born Jewish, you know that it's something in your DNA that you have to kind of reckon with at some point. And I would look at public figures and notice that in their Vanity Fair interviews or their New Yorker interviews, their religion or their Jewish identity was not particularly highlighted, if it was there at all. And so I wondered, where does such a private part of us kind of function or sparkle or get complicated for some of our most public Americans, some of our highest achievers? And I think it was my backdoor way of also kind of figuring out my own answers to the questions I never asked myself of what does it mean to be a Jew? What does it mean to pass on a Jewish identity to my children?
I am Abigail, daughter of Plenty, daughter of Seal, daughter of Jenny. I am Abigail, daughter of Plenty, daughter of Seal, daughter of Jenny.
You'll know what your role is for. The door,
Everybody that I've met that's in this particular world has like their own take on it, which is really great. And I'd like to know, how you developed your angle, your shtick, your, gimmick, your, whatever you want to call it. It's yours and it's so unique to you.
And I went through like these different styles, more experimental, less experimental, more traditional, less traditional. But stylistically, something kept pulling me back over the last however many years to my favorite period of recorded klezmer music, which is the 1950s, mid-1950s, specifically from about 1955 through 1959 or so, is like this just era of records that I adore. and stylistically, it was something I wanted to go after. And then through this whole period, I just love composing and love writing tunes. It's my, you know, it's what I like the most. I love playing my own music, which, I mean, I love playing traditional music and older music as well. And I love writing in that style. So. But in terms of that period, it's really a handful of records that to me are just incredible. So I'll tell you them. The Epstein brothers put out a record called The Dukes of Freilicland. It's also called Mazel Tov somewhere, but me and my cohort know this as The Dukes of Freilicland, and it's just like really well recorded and amazingly executed. And it's like, there is your master class on how to be a klezmer band. Some of the best drumming you'll ever hear, Julie Epstein. Amazing record. And I mean, the clarinet playing, Max Epstein. I mean, I just can't listen to enough of that. A couple of years later, I think right around 1960, Danny Rubenstein put out a record called The Happy People. Amazing record. Some years earlier, I believe 1956 or 7 was the trilogy of records that Dave Tarras put out with the Murray Lehrer Orchestra, and those records were called Freilich and Hi-Fi, and there's 3 volumes of them. Wow. Incredible. I love those records. The band, which I can't seem to find listed, I mean, I know that Murray Lehrer was the accordionist, Lou Levin was the trumpet player, and Dave on clarinet. Great. And then for me, the most influential of the records is Tantz, 1956. Featuring Dave Tarras and Sam Musiker, his son-in-law. Sam Musiker, it was his project. Just, I mean, so well thought out. And it was, what I like about it is that it's kind of this concept record in a way. It's like concert klezmer, you know, and it was just so well arranged and beautiful writing. And it was the first and only of its kind, because klezmer music kind of went for a big nap right around 1960 in terms of creative development, you might say. So this record was incredible.
So I'm always amazed when people of your generation, you know, discover this stuff.
I think that nothing replaces being able to spend time with the older generation, and I'm, you know, the older generation that's no longer here.
Daughter of Seal, daughter of Jenny.
In sich Reures von die Weiten leben noch die alte schöne Zeiten.
just finish by saying and sending my love and appreciation to the dozens and dozens and dozens of performers, great artists, musicians, lecturers, filmmakers, band members, just every single person who participated. I believe in Tikkun Olam. I believe in making the world a better place.